faltering alliances and shifting loyalties rock Port Charles amid new threats. On a stormy Wednesday in Port Charles, battle lines are redrawn not on the streets but within homes, galleries, and behind closed doors where whispered threats and broken trusts reshape the fates of those entangled in ever-deepening chaos. What appeared to be a day of minor disruptions quickly spiraled into a volatile chain of emotional detonations, strategic power plays, and moral reckonings. At the heart of it all stood Sasha, seeking escape, Carly, issuing a brutal ultimatum, and Drew, operating from the shadows with intentions that threatened to unravel both friendships and fragile truces. Sasha had reached her limit. In the garden outside the Quartermaine mansion, the flickering torchlight cast long shadows over her tense figure as she held Daisy close. Her gaze was locked on Michael, searching for a sliver of understanding that never arrived. Her voice trembled not with fear but with clarity. She no longer felt safe. Not here. Not in Port Charles. She believed that someone, perhaps even several people, were orchestrating psychological warfare against her. Her episodes, too precise to be coincidence, were eroding her stability. And Michael's insistence that she stay felt more like a sentence than sanctuary. Though Michael had once been her rock during her darkest collapse, this time was different. This time, Sasha saw no way out but exile. Michael's patience evaporated with her every plea. His jaw tightened, his fists curled. He refused to entertain the idea of Daisy leaving town, fearing it would trigger a legal war over custody that he wasn't ready to lose. In his eyes, Sasha's escape plan was an abandonment of not just Daisy but of shared accountability. But Sasha saw it differently. This was survival, not retreat. Every moment spent in this town, under the watch of unseen enemies, was another moment Daisy was at risk. Elsewhere, Carly had drawn her own line in the sand. She confronted Willow with the cool fury of a woman who had seen too many betrayals, especially those veiled as maternal protection. Carly had been briefed by Michael. There were recent incidents involving Willow and Wiley, moments where lines had been crossed, instincts overridden, and trust eroded. Carly's warning was swift and uncompromising. If there was one more misstep involving Wiley, Willow would find herself permanently barred from the Quartermaine property and from every space Wiley held sacred. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Willow, rattled and isolated, found her way to Drew. His support, though genuine, came with conditions. Drew cautioned her against giving Carly ammunition before the upcoming custody hearing. Still, beneath his sympathy lurked deeper motives. He was juggling multiple plays, supporting Willow while quietly maneuvering behind Curtis' back. When Willow expressed her unease about Sasha's condition and Carly's aggression, Drew consoled her while suppressing the growing unease he felt about his own role in the web of betrayals he was orchestrating. Over at Alexa's home, Cody was unraveling. Still reeling from Ava's slap following their stolen kiss, he confided in Christina, who had grown uncomfortably comfortable in her manipulative role. Christina encouraged Cody to remain embedded in Ava's life, arguing that her continued hospitality proved Ava hadn't learned her lesson. But Cody wasn't sure anymore. Ava's complexity drew him in despite himself. The plan, whatever it was starting to fray at the edges. Christina, sensing Cody's emotional confusion, grew suspicious. Her instincts told her Molly might not be the neutral observer she pretended to be. Christina saw hints of longing in Molly's glances at Cody, the way her voice softened when she mentioned him. For a moment, the scheme felt less like a mission and more like an emotional grenade waiting to explode. Cody later arrived at the gallery, hoping to reset the damage with Ava. She greeted him with a cool exterior, but when Rick Lansing arrived, the atmosphere shifted again. Rick's gestures, flowers, funding, and careful apologies were designed to rebuild trust, but Ava remained cautious. Their history, though deeply buried, was never truly forgotten. Meanwhile, Rick's eyes lingered too long on Elizabeth. When he invited her to the exhibit, she accepted but firmly reminded him they were nothing more than friends. Rick agreed, yet his smile said otherwise. Old patterns had a way of resurrecting themselves in Port Charles. In the more dangerous shadows of the city, Sonny was preparing for retaliation. At home, he briefed Jason about movements at the docks involving Selena Wu's associates. The incident at Charlie's had been unlike prior attacks. It felt orchestrated, personal, and designed to make a statement. Jason, always the tactician, assured Sonny that Marco was secured, but the pressure was mounting. Lucas, desperate to shield Marco from fallout, pleaded with Carly to intervene before Sonny acted on instinct and escalated the situation. Carly's visit to Sonny's house wasn't just a warning, it was a demand. "We've lost too many children," she said, with an edge of desperation. "I'm not burying another one because you needed to send a message." Sonny barely acknowledged her plea, his mind already racing ahead. The stakes were rising, and Sidwell was inching dangerously close to triggering a war. Sonny made one thing clear: if Sidwell came for his family, he would retaliate without mercy, and with precision. Meanwhile, the cracks in Curtis' operation were beginning to show. At his office, Felicia arrived bearing news about Jacinda. She had been due to return to Port Charles, but her apartment was now empty and no one could reach her. Curtis told him the truth: Drew had gotten to her first. Jordan, arriving moments later, stunned him with a sudden resignation. She no longer wanted to interfere in his marriage. Her words were laced with regret and finality, an acknowledgement that their past had finally become too heavy to carry forward. Felicia's update confirmed Curtis' fears. Jacinda hadn't simply flaked, she had been neutralized. As he processed the betrayal, his mind returned to Drew, to Kai, and to the way things had spiraled so quickly. Curtis recalled how Drew had warned him about Kai's divided loyalties just before Kai showed up, as if orchestrated. It wasn't a coincidence, it was choreography. And Kai, meanwhile, was unraveling from the weight of his secrets. His allegiance to Drew had cost him Trina's trust, and now the burden of confession loomed. Trina had sensed something all along: Kai's hesitation, his sudden disappearances, the hollow assurances. He was ready to come clean, but he knew that when he did, the fallout would be more than personal, it would be political, emotional, and potentially irreparable. By the time night fell over Port Charles, the chessboard had shifted again. Sasha was preparing to leave, but not in retreat, in resilience. Carly had drawn a line that threatened to sever Willow from Wiley's world. Christina's schemes were becoming less calculated and more chaotic. Drew's manipulations were starting to unravel his alliances. And Sonny, pushed to the brink, was about to make a move that could ignite a war across every corner of the city. Nothing in Port Charles ends quietly. Every choice echoes. Every betrayal festers. And in the silence between storms, the city waits, not for peace, but for the next explosion.